Hello everyone, so for today's video, we will discuss to you what are the constitution in the year 1973 and year 1987. But first, we must know what is constitution. So constitution is a set of rules being made by the government by the government officials like senator and in a way of process, like this is not just in a one person who really made this constitution, but this is a group member which they collaborate their ideas in order to make this type of constitution. And this constitution might be used for us in our way of living or been considered as a policy for us to follow, or what would be the right way to make the environment or the society become more improved. So first, we need to discuss about what would happen in the year 1973. So are you all ready? Okay, let's start.
Good day, my topic for today is about 1973 constitutional authoritarianism. In 1965, Ferdinand A. Marcos was elected president, and in 1967, Philippine Congress passed a resolution calling for a constitutional convention to change the 1935 constitution. Marcos won the re-election in 1969 in a boosted campaign over spending and use of government funds. Election of the delegates to the Constitutional Convention were held on November 20, 1970, and the convention began formally on June 1, 1971, with the former President Carlos P. Garcia being elected as the convention president. Unfortunately, he died and was succeeded by another former president, Diosdado Macapagal. Before the convention was finished, martial law was declared. Marcos cited a growing communist insurgency as reason for martial law, which was provided for in 1935 Constitution. Some delegates of the ongoing constitutional convention were placed behind bars and others went into holding or were voluntarily exiled. With Marcos as a dictator, the direction of the convention turned with accounts that the president himself dedicated some provisions of the constitutions, manipulating the documents to able to hold power for as long as he could. On November 29, 1972, the convention approved its proposal constitution. The constitution was supposed to introduce a parliamentary-style government, where legislative power was vested in an unicameral National Assembly, where members being elected in 6-year term. The president was elected as the symbolic and ceremonial head of the chosen from the members of National Assembly. The president will serve a 6-year term and could be re-elected to an unlimited number of terms.
Executive power was relegated to the Prime Minister, who was also the head of the government, and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, who was also to be elected from the National Assembly. In this Constitution of 1973, authoritarianism, President Marcos issued Presidential Decree No. 73, stating the date of the plebiscite to ratify or reject the proposed Constitution on November 30, 1970. So, in this November 30, President Marcos was rejected the Presidential Decree of 1973 because there are something bad or against him. So the plebiscite was postponed later on since Marcos feared that the public might vote to reject the constitution. Instead, the plebiscite citizen assemblies were held from the January 10 to 15, 1973, where the citizens coming together and voting by hand decided on whether to ratify the constitution, suspend the convening of the interim National Assembly, continue martial law, or a place moratorium on elections for a period of at least several years. So, President Marcos on January 17, 1972 issued a proclamation announcing that the proposed constitution had been ratified by an overwhelming vote of the members of the highly irregular Citizen Assembly. In this constitution, the constitution was amended several times. In 1976, citizen assemblies once again decided to allow the continuation of martial law as well as approve the amendments. An interim batasang pamansa to substitute for the interim National Assembly, the president was to become the prime minister and continue to exercise legislative powers until martial law was lifted and authorized by the president to legislate on his own an emergency basis. In 1980, the retirement age of the members of the judiciary were extended to 70 years. So, imbis ang retirement sa kwanra kay gamay ra gi-extend to 70 years. In 1981, the parliamentary system was formally modified to a French style semi-presidential system where executive power was restored to the president, who was once again directly elected. An executive committee was to be created, composed of the prime minister and the 14 others that serve as the president's cabinet, and some electoral reforms were instituted. In 1984, the executive committee was abolished and the position of the vice president was restored. After all the amendments introduced, the 1973 constitution was merely a way for the president to keep executive powers, abolish the Senate, and by means never acted as a parliamentary system, instead functioned as the authoritarian presidential system with all the real power concentrated in the hands of the president, with the backing of the Constitution. In 1980s, the situation had been very turbulent, as Marcos' mass power discontent has also been burgeoning. The tide turned swiftly when in August 1983, Benigno Aquino Jr., opposition leader and regarded as the most credible alternative to President Marcos, was assassinated while under military escort immediately after his return from exile in the United States. So, pag-abot ni Benigno Aquino Jr., paglanding niya sa National NAIA, kay tambangan siya dito, maragi pusil ba? Pagbalik niya diri sa Philippines. So, this event caused the coming together of the non-violent opposition against the Marcos authoritarian regime. So, Marcos was the first to hold or snap elections a year early, and as said, elections was marred by widespread fraud. Marcos declared himself winner despite international condemnation and nationwide protest. A small group of military rebels attempted to stage a coup but failed. However, this triggered what came to be known as IDSA, People Power Revolution of 1986, as people from all walks of life spilled into the streets. So, in this case, ang mga tao sa Manila nagtipon para i-impeach si Marcos in that time. So, naang si Marcos anang time nagandam og mga military yang kuan. So di siya ka pwede patakal pamusil sa mga tao kay ato bay nang kuan kanang ipamahalaan og taon. Pero in that case si Marcos was kanang minaog siyang posisyon in that time because of the people around. So ang nahimong presidente ng time pag impeach ni Marcos kay si Cory Aquino. So under pressure from the United States of America, he used to support Marcos and his martial law. The Marcos family fled into exile. His opponent in the snap election, Benigno Aquino Jr.'s widow, Corazon Aquino, was installed as a president on February 2020. So, once again, nag-resulti na ganiya nga si Cory Aquino mo'y new president. And in that time, in February 25, 1986.
So next would be the year 1987. So are you all ready? Let's listen.
Good morning everyone. My topic for today is about 1987 constitutional after martial law. So in 1987, when Cory Aquino sit as a president, she changed some constitution after the martial law. So paglingkod ni Cory Aquino as a president, iyang gipang-usab ang mga constitution. So ang especially ang giusab is katong martial law nga grabe kayong gibuhat ni Marcos. So ang mga tao atong panahon na is walay freedom. Ang gabuot silang freedom is ang government. So in March 1896, Aquino proclaimed transitional constitution to last for a year, while Constitutional Commission drafted permanent constitution. So the transitional constitution is called the Freedom Constitution. So unsa ang Freedom Constitution? So dara, Freedom Constitution was intended as a transitional constitution to ensure democracy, freedom of the people. So ang Freedom Constitution is ang kagawasan sa usa ka tawo without paggunit sa gobyerno o unsang way makabuot nimo. In 1986, a constitutional convention was created composed of 48 members appointed by the President Aquino from varied backgrounds and representatives. So, the new constitution officially approved or adopted in February to 1987. So, ang mga bagong constitution is na-approve or nakuha na nato is pag February to 1987. The new constitution begins with a preamble and 18 self-contained articles. It established the Philippines Democratic Republican State, people and all government authority emanates from them. It allocates government powers among executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government. So there are three branches of the government. First is executive branch, second is legislative, and the third is the judicial branch. So first is discussed is about executive. So executive composed of three: the president, vice president, and the cabinet secretaries. So executive branch is headed by president. So gipanguluhan siya sa usa ka presidente. So the president and the vice president by direct vote of the people and the term of 6 years. So ang termino nila is 6 years. So next, president. So president is chief executive and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So sila ang gahi-gahi, sila ang commander sa mga armed forces. So sila ang muhatag ng mga mando kung unsay buhaton sa mga tao or sa mga armed forces of the Philippines. This executive branch has the authority to administer the law primarily by bringing lawbreakers trial, to appoint officials, and oversee the administration of government responsibilities. Next branch is the legislative. It composed of senators and House representatives. The Senate composed of 24 senators who are elected at large by the qualified voters in the Philippines. The term of office of the senator is 6 years. So the same ra sila sa president, vice president o termino, 6 years. The House representative composed of more than 250 members. The last one branch of the government is judicial branch. Judicial branch hold the power to settle controversies involving the rights that are legally demandable and forcible. So ang judicial branch is siya ang musitol sa mga controversy. So mura ni siya korte, korte. So mura siya ang judge. So judicial branch composed of nag-compose siya og Supreme Court, Court Appeals, and Court of Tax Appeals. So mo lagi Supreme Court na agi siya sa husgado, judicial siya ang mo settle. The next one is the office of ombudsman. So what is ombudsman? Created to investigate complaints that pertain to public corruption, unlawful behavior of public misconduct. So ang ombudsman is nahimo siya para mo-investigate sa mga corruption diri sa ato ang nasod. So nga siya ang office of ombudsman. The next is changing the constitution. So ang pag-usab sa mga balaod or saligang batas. But before maka-change sa constitution is there are process. So the process is 3. So the first process is Congress as Constituent Assembly. Second is Constitutional Convention or CONCON. The last one is People through People Initiative. So what we discuss is una is Congress as Constituent Assembly or CONAS. So what is this all about? All members of the Congress, so mga Congress, so by vote of 3/4 of all its member and 3/4 of Senate and 3/4 of the House Representatives. So kailangan ang mubotar is 3/4 to 3/4 para makuan ang usa ka constitution. Next is Constitutional Convention or the CONCON. So two-thirds vote of all members of Congress or by majority vote of all members of the Congress with the question of the whether or not all call and convention to be resolved by the people in the plebiscite. So ang kaning constitutional convention is the vote is 2/3 vote of all members of Congress. The next one is People through People Initiative. So what is People through People Initiative? Initiative is the power of the people to propose amendments to the Constitution or to propose the enact legislation through election called the purpose. So is People Initiative is about voting sa pag-vote sa tao. Muna siyang mga kuan kung unsay gusto sa tao na mahitabo. So muna yung People Initiative, pero nagkinahanglan po siya vote nagkinahanglan siya vote. So ang People Initiative is requires kuan, so dara ang iyang requires a petition at least 12% of the total number of registered voters of which every legislative district. So nagkinahanglan og 12% total number of registered voters must be represented by at least 3% of the registered voters. So that's all, and thank you and have a good day.
That's it. Thank you for listening. Bye.